They made us laugh, they moved us, and they became treasures of British television. But behind the warm sunshine of Maplin summer camp lies a bitter truth. 13 beloved stars are no longer with us. Some faced sudden tragedy, others fought quietly away from the spotlight, and their final chapters will shock you. Today, we look back at 13 unforgettable actors whose careers were cut short too soon. Each has a story as compelling as the movie itself. Who will surprise you the most? Paul Shane as Ted Bovis. When Paul Shane first stepped onto the set of High to High in 1980 as Ted Bovis, he was 40 years old, a sly, quick-witted camp director with a twinkle in his eye and a knack for turning any situation to his advantage. On screen, Ted is the life of Maplin Camp, always scheming, charming guests, and delivering witty jokes with the wink of an eye. In real life, Shane knows the character's bold, resilient personality very well. It is the result of the difficult battles in his life. Born on June 19, 1940 in Thryburgh, West Riding of Yorkshire, England, Shane's early years were far removed from the entertainment world. He dropped out of school to work as a miner, a dangerous and brutal job that he held until a back injury at the age of 27 abruptly ended his career. The accident almost ended his career. Instead, it was the beginning of something else entirely. With a natural sense of humor, he began performing at men's clubs, honing the sharp comedic skills that would later define his television career. Throughout the 1970s, Shane continued to appear in guest roles on British television, but it was this role that took him to new heights. As Ted Bovis, he skillfully balanced the lines between likable rogue and opportunist, winning over audiences even when his character was in trouble. Behind the laughter, however, Shane's personal life was also tumultuous. His wife, Dory, whom he married in 1967, died suddenly in 2001, leaving him devastated after more than 3 decades together. Shane continued to work until his final years, appearing in shows such as You Rang My Lord and Dr. Beeching, but his health gradually declined. Friends noticed he moved more carefully, and there were rumors of heart problems and diabetes that were silently affecting his health. In public, he remained a talented entertainer, but deep down, the pain of losing his wife and his long-term illness weighed heavily on him. On 16 May 2013, Paul Shane died at the age of 72 in a nursing home in Rotherham. Ruth Madoc chung by Gladys Pugh. When Ruth Madoc burst onto the scene in 1980 as Gladys Pugh, the sultry, sentimental Welsh blonde was 37 years old, with a hypnotic smile and a voice that could switch from sexy announcements to biting sarcasm in the blink of an eye. Part camp sweetheart, part schemer, part lustful boss while keeping guests in line, a role that quickly made Madoc a national favorite. Born on April 16, 1943 in Norwich, England, but raised in Wales, Ruth's life was far removed from the glamorous world of television. Orphaned at a young age, she was raised by her grandmother in Llansamlet, Swansea, where she had a disciplined and quietly lonely childhood. Determined to escape her circumstances, she won a place at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, where she honed her natural talent for performing. Her early years were spent touring theater, musicals, and occasional tours of the West End, building a resilience that would serve her well in a profession notorious for its precariousness. At the height of his career, Madoc starred in both television and film, including a role in the acclaimed Fiddler on the Roof, 1971. But Gladys Pugh changed all that. The well-timed pauses, the raised eyebrows, the lilting Welsh accent, the little details that made the character unforgettable. In real life, Ruth's marriage to actor Philip Madoc was a stormy one. They married in 1961 and had 2 children, but the relationship endured years of strain under the pressure of touring schedules, competing careers, and personal differences, eventually ending in divorce in 1981, just as her fame was at its peak. In later years, Maddock remained a familiar face on stage and television, from pantomimes to soap operas. But her career was not without its ups and downs. A serious fall in 2019 left her with a severe hip injury, forcing her to cancel her stage performances. She spoke candidly about the emotional toll of being typecast, the difficulty of maintaining steady work after the height of her fame, and the quiet isolation that sometimes comes with long tours. On December 9, 2022, Ruth Maddock died at the age of 79 after surgery following a fall. Simon Cadell plays Jeffrey Fairbrother. When Simon Cadell first appeared in High to High in 1980 as Jeffrey Fairbrother, he was 30, a suave, Oxford-educated entertainment manager who had abandoned a promising academic career to enter the chaotic world of Maplin Holiday Camp. On screen, Fairbrother was the perfect foil to the camp's more eccentric staff. Charming, sophisticated, and endlessly patient, but often bewildered by the absurdities around him. Cadell's deft combination of witty wit and subtle vulnerability made him one of the show's most beloved characters. Born on July 19, 1950 in London, England, Simon John Cadell grew up in an artistic environment. His father was a stage agent. His godfather was the actor Sir John Gielgud, and his sister Selina Cadell would also become a famous actress. From an early age, Simon seemed destined for a career in theater, studying at the Bristol Old Vic Theatre School before building up an impressive repertoire of classical drama. Before High to High, he had performed Shakespearean roles in A Midsummer Night's Dream and The Merchant of Venice, where he honed the mannerisms and diction that would later define Fairbrother. Away from the spotlight, Cadell's personal life is quieter and more private. He is married to actress Rebecca Croft, daughter of Heidi High co-creator David Croft, which ties him even more closely to the show's creative family. But while his career seems to be going well, his health has always been a big question mark. In the early 1990s, he suffered a near-fatal heart attack, forcing him to reassess his career. Soon after, he was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, a disease he kept largely secret from the public. Despite his illness, Cadell continued to work, lending his rich, distinctive voice to radio plays and narrative projects, even as his body weakened. Friends recall how he refused to let his illness get the best of him, regularly appearing at rehearsals with the warmth and humor that had made him so beloved by his fans. But the illness persisted. On March 6, 1996, Simon Cadell died at the age of 45. His death was shocking, not only because of his youth, but also because it silenced a talent still at its peak. Felix Bonas as Fred Quilly. Felix Bonas was 54 when he joined High to High in 1980 as Fred Quilly. He played the gruff but kind-hearted repairman at the camp, whose equestrian past was both a source of pride and a source of humor. Quilly's temper, stubbornness, and penchant for accidents make him a perfect fit for the crazy world of Maplin Holiday Camp. And Bonas brings to the role a raw authenticity that only a veteran actor can bring. Born on March 30, 1922 in Harwell, Berkshire, England, Felix was no stranger to the uncertainty of life. As a young man, he served in the Royal Berkshire Regiment during World War II, surviving the harrowing D-Day landings. But his wartime service came at a cost. He was wounded in combat and spent some time recuperating before turning to entertainment as a means of moving forward. Starting out as a stand-up comedian in post-war Britain, he honed his sharp wit, which carried him through variety shows, pantomimes, and endless nights at clubs. By the time television arrived in the 1970s, Bonas was already a familiar face to TV audiences. Before his rise to fame, he had appeared on shows such as Are You Being Served? And Dad's Army, but it was with the help of Fred Quilly that he gained national recognition. In real life, Felix lived a simple life with his wife Mavis, whom he married in 1946. The couple weathered some difficult times together, especially during a time when acting jobs were scarce and the nightclub industry was in decline. Bonas later suffered a severe emotional blow when Mavis died, leaving him extremely lonely after more than half a century of marriage. Health problems began to increase, including arthritis and hearing loss, which limited his stage work. However, he never fully retired, occasionally appearing at fan events and speaking fondly of his prime years. On September 13, 2009, Felix Bonas died at the age of 87. His death marks the loss of one of Britain's greatest comedians, a man who lived through war, hardship, and personal trauma, but always found the laugh again. For those who remember, Fred Quilly was more than a repairman at a fictional summer camp. He was Felix, strong, resourceful, and quietly affectionate. Barry Howard as Barry Stewart Hargreaves. When Barry Howard enters the High to High summer camp in 1980 as Barry Stewart Hargreaves, he is 43 years old, immaculately dressed, impeccably mannered, and completely attached to his on-screen dance partner, Yvonne. Barry is the camp's resident dance instructor, flashy, flamboyant, and prone to cutting remarks that cut through any pretense. It was a role that allowed Howard to showcase his wit and stage presence, creating a character as memorable for his sharp wit as his waltz moves. Born on July 9, 1937 in Nottingham, England, Barry grew up with a love of both acting and glamour. Before his television debut, he honed his acting skills in theater and pantomime, spending years traveling in productions. His natural demeanor and precise movements are no accident. Howard trained as a dancer before fully committing to acting, and it is this discipline that has become the foundation for his stage presence. Off-screen, Barry leads a more private life, but is known to his friends for his quick wit and dedication to his craft. He never married, and colleagues often remarked that the stage was his true lifelong companion. After High to High ended in 1988, he continued to appear on television in shows such as You Rang, My Lord, and Oh, Dr. Beeching. He remained active on stage until his final years, touring regularly in plays and pantomimes, where his old-time acting talents shone through. Behind the glamour, however, Howard faced serious health problems. In his final years, he battled leukemia, undergoing treatment while appearing in public whenever possible. Those close to him spoke of his determination to maintain dignity and humor, even as the disease weakened him physically. Barry Howard died on April 28, 2016, at the age of 78. Kenneth Connor Chongvai Sammy Morris. When Kenneth Connor appeared in High to High in the mid-1980s as Sammy Morris, a smiling comedian and camp entertainer, he was in his mid-70s. A veteran of British stage and screen, his presence brought an extra layer of authenticity to the role. Sammy was the kind of character who could turn even the bleakest holiday week into a vivid memory, and Connor's decades of comedy experience made him a perfect fit for Maplin's world. Born on 6 June 1918 in Islington, London, Kenneth Connor trained at the Central School of Speech and Drama before serving in the British Army during World War II, where he honed his comedic skills entertaining troops. After the war, he built a notable career on stage, radio, and film, becoming a household name as one of the original mainstays of the carry-on films from the late 1950s to the early 1970s. His signature combination of frenetic energy, fluid expressions, and lightning-fast delivery made him one of Britain's best-loved comedians. In real life, Connor married Margaret Dixon in 1942, and they remained together until his death, a rare bond in show business. He was known for his devotion to his family and his extreme discipline, often arriving for rehearsals hours early. However, the final years of his career were not without challenges. He struggled with a number of health issues, including cancer, which he kept largely secret while continuing to work. Despite his illness, Connor's professionalism never wavered. He worked almost to the end of his life, appearing on stage and television with the same enthusiasm he had as a young man. Kenneth Connor died on November 28, 1993, at the age of 75. His passing marked the loss of a performer whose career spanned more than half a century, from wartime concerts to guest roles on sitcoms. John Le Mesurier as Hugo Buxton. When John Le Mesurier appeared on High to High in the mid-1980s as Hugo Buxton, he was in his mid-70s, a guest star known for his suave, easygoing demeanor, perfectly suited to this elegant, somewhat world-weary character. Buxton is the kind of man who looks perfectly at home sipping a gin and tonic while observing the odd goings-on at Maplin's holiday camp. And Le Mesurier plays the role with his trademark casual charm. Born on April 5, 1912 in Bedford, England, John Elton Le Mesurier Halleley was educated at public school before training as an actor at the Fay Compton School of Dramatic Art. His early stage career was interrupted by World War II when he served in the Royal Tank Regiment. Returning to acting after the war, he became a prolific supporting actor, appearing in dozens of British films in the 1950s and 1960s, often playing stoic professionals or quiet authority figures. Le Mesurier's career-defining role was Sergeant Arthur Wilson in Dad's Army from 1968 to 1977, whose dry performance and impeccable timing made him a national treasure. In real life, however, his life was more turbulent. He married 3 times, most famously to actress Hattie Jacques, whose affair with another man was exposed by the tabloids. Le Mesurier, meanwhile, remained amiable, even allowing Jacques and his mistress to live together under the same roof for a time. Friends describe him as gentle to the point of being abominable, but also secretly haunted by feelings of powerlessness and alcoholism that overshadowed much of his later life. By the time he landed his most important role, Le Mesurier's health had seriously declined. Years of heavy drinking had damaged his liver, and he was diagnosed with cirrhosis. Despite this, he continued to take on roles, determined to continue working as long as he could. John Le Mesurier died on November 15, 1983, at the age of 71, not long after he appeared in the film. Brenda Cowling as Mrs. Camper, Nora, a wide range of roles. When Brenda Cowling appeared in High to High in the 1980s, she was in her late 50s, easily slipping into a variety of supporting roles, from the posh and bossy Mrs. Camper to the observant Nora. She had the rare ability to make even a fleeting scene memorable, thanks to her expressive face, expressive voice, and brilliant comedic abilities. Whether it's a sharp retort or an over-the-top, horrified reaction, Cowling brings Maplin's camp world to life, proving that even the smallest details can leave a lasting impression. Born on 23rd of April, 1925 in Islington, London, Brenda Lillian Cowling grew up during the Great Depression, an experience that gave her both resilience and a sharp sense of humor. After training at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, she entered the stage and quickly became a regular in touring productions. Her big break in television came in the 1960s, and she quickly became a sought-after actress in British sitcoms and dramas, appearing in Are You Being Served?, Dad's Army, and Some Mothers Do Avon. Off-screen, Cowling was known for her warmth, but also her fierce independence. She never married, preferring the freedom to focus entirely on her acting career. Colleagues recall her generosity with young actors, but also her intolerance of sloppiness in her work. She had little patience with anyone who was not serious about her craft. Despite a long and successful career, she was often candid about the financial precariousness of acting, admitting that there were years when she took whatever roles were available just to make ends meet. Cowling suffered from reduced mobility, hip injuries, and eventually heart problems. However, she continued to work into her 80s, making her last television appearance in 2009. Brenda Cowling died on October 2, 2010, at the age of 85. Her passing marks the end of a career that spanned more than half a century. Diane Holland as Yvonne Stewart Hargreaves. When Diane Holland first appeared in High to High in 1980 as Yvonne Stewart Hargreaves, she was 50 years old, exuding elegance, precision, and a disdain for anything less than perfection. One of the two members of Maplin's resident ballroom dancing group, along with Barry Stewart Hargreaves, Yvonne was commanding, impeccably dressed, and unpretentious. Holland imbued her with a sense of impeccable timing and a flair for the dramatic, turning a character who could have been a flat caricature into one of the series' most enduring creations. Born on February 28, 1930, in Melbourne, Australia, and raised in England, Diane was formally trained as an actress from a young age. She trained as a professional dancer before moving into acting, working in repertory theater, pantomime, and musicals. Her early stage work took her all over the UK and abroad, where she became known for her discipline and professionalism. By the time High to High opened, she was already a seasoned performer with decades of experience. Off-screen, Holland is a very private person. She never married and kept her personal life private, although colleagues described her as devoted to her friends and meticulous about her work. She was particularly close to her sister, the actress and choreographer Jane Tucker, with whom she collaborated frequently. The role of Yvonne came with a hidden challenge. During the filming of High to High, Holland struggled with severe arthritis, a condition that made the physically demanding ballroom scenes far more painful than audiences had imagined. She kept her condition a secret, not letting it affect her acting or her character's charm. After High to High ended in 1988, Holland continued to act in stage productions and continued to work on television, but recurring health problems gradually forced her to slow down. She later suffered from a long illness, withdrawing from public life but still keeping in touch with her fans. Diane Holland died on January 24, 2009, at the age of 78. Ken Berry, singer of holiday rock. When High to High opened each week with the upbeat holiday rock, the voice that carried those notes belonged to Ken Berry. When the sitcom debuted in 1980, Berry was 47, an experienced singer and voice actor whose warm, clear voice could turn a simple tune into a memory that would last for decades. Though he never appeared on screen, his performance set the tone for the entire show, joyful, charming, and steeped in nostalgia. Born on January 9, 1933 in Stoke-on-Trent, England, Berry, whose real name was Leslie Hume, grew up in a working-class family where music was both an escape and a passion. He began his singing career in dance bands before moving on to radio jingles, commercials, and recordings in the 1960s and 1970s. His vocal adaptability helped him secure steady work in the entertainment industry, although much of that work was uncredited. In addition to High, Berry became a familiar face to millions of children as the narrator and voice of the beloved BBC series Postman Pat from 1981 to 2012. He recorded not only the show's theme, but also the voices of the characters. This work earned him a quiet but enduring reputation. Parents instantly recognized his voice, even if they couldn't remember his face. In his private life, Berry was a devoted husband and father, although he kept his family out of the public eye. Friends praised his work ethic and perfectionism, often spending hours in the studio making sure every note and intonation was just right. However, his health began to fail. Battling liver cancer, Berry gradually withdrew from public life, focusing on his family and legacy. Ken Berry passed away on July 29, 2016, at the age of 83. Anthony Michael Hall Jongvai Rusty Griswold. When Anthony Michael Hall appeared in National Lampoon's Vacation, 1983, he played Rusty Griswold, a wide-eyed, sarcastic-voiced 15-year-old who perfectly embodied the quintessential American teenager who who finds himself reluctantly trapped on a chaotic family road trip. Rusty's witty one-liners and deadpan voice became the film's signature, cementing Hall's place in the pop culture landscape of the 1980s. Born April 14, 1968 in West Roxbury, Massachusetts, Hall began acting in commercials at the age of 7, before moving into television with roles in The Goldbug and The Guiding Light. His big break came with Vacation, but he didn't want to be pigeonholed into playing teenage sidekicks. Just 2 years later, he became a core member of the famous Brat Pack, starring in John Hughes classics such as 16 Candles, 1984, The Breakfast Club, 1985, and Weird Science, 1985. Off-screen, Hall's career has had its ups and downs. As a young star, he faced the pressures of sudden fame, stereotyping, and personal struggles, including a public battle with substance abuse in the late 1980s. Determined to rebuild his career, he took on a variety of roles in both television and film, and finally found renewed recognition with his starring role in The Dead Zone from 2002 to 2007. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Hall has weathered the harsh realities of Hollywood and continues to work hard to this day. Now in his 50s, he is known not only for his iconic early roles, but also for his resilience in an industry that often abandons young stars. Jeffrey Holland as Spike Dixon. When High to High debuted in 1980, Jeffrey Holland was 34 years old, playing Spike Dixon, a passionate but down-on-his-luck comedian who wore outrageous costumes and endured countless humiliations just to entertain the guests. Spike was the heart and soul of Maplin Summer Camp, always ready to lend a helping hand with a big smile, even when things were going badly. Holland played the role with an energy and warmth that kept the audience rooting for him, even when his plans went awry. Born on 17 July 1946 in Walsall, Staffordshire, Jeffrey Holland trained at the Birmingham School of Speech and Dramatic Art before embarking on a career in theater. His early television roles included small parts in comedies and dramas, but High to High gave him his breakthrough. The role of Spike was tailor-made for his natural clowning, quick timing, and ability to, at times, literally, engage in physical comedy. Off-screen, Holland developed close friendships with his co-stars and became part of the writing family of Jimmy Perry and David Croft, later appearing on their subsequent sitcoms, You Rang My Lord and Oh, Dr. Beeching. His marriage to actress Judy Buxton was a happy and enduring one, with the pair often appearing together on stage. Unlike many of his peers, Holland not only survived, but thrived after the show first aired, touring extensively on Broadway and reprising Spike in nostalgic stage versions. To this day, Jeffrey Holland is still alive, working and appearing at fan events.